So this is part B of the KhoodeelaarTV campaign, KhoodeelaarTV Channel, broadcast online from London, UK. UK within quotation marks, of course. Despite the fact that the Boris Johnson wing of the corrupt political system are ecstatic this morning following the appearance of Alex Salmond, the former leader of the SNP, giving evidence against the regime of Nicola Sturgeon as the First Minister yesterday. And the Daily Telegraph has, of course, been running lengthy contents of the appearance by Alex Salmond yesterday, Friday, the 26th of February, 2020. Now, here we look again at the front page of The Guardian today, 27th of February 2021. And the front page of The Guardian sort of contains the item about the Saudi de facto ruler of the Saudi so-called kingdom regime having ordered the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. We have discussed some of that already. And there is this piece about Supreme Court, the UK Supreme Court ruling for the MI6 or MI5. Well, for MI5, MI6, Priti Patel, Boris Johnson, and the stooges, including Sajid Javid. The Pakistan origin, dubious so-called Muslim conservative, Sajid Javid removed the British citizenship of Shamima Begum. Now, we are not part of any of the internal goings-on, either among the so-called lawyers or law traders appearing in the name of Shamima Begum at any stage, nor are we familiar with any relatives or biological family of Shamima Begum anywhere. But we are absolutely adamant that Shamima Begum, who has been condemned online by the Sun, Rupert Murdoch's son, by thousands of comments against her, following yesterday's kind of formal bureaucratic ruling by the Supreme Court that was very much in keeping with the agenda of the MI6, MI5, Priti Patel, etc. That Shamima Begum, as a child, along with the two other children, friends of hers, who became featured in the news following their being filmed apparently at a Turkish airport in 2015, February 2015, apparently leaving the UK and passing through Turkey into Syria, apparently, allegedly, to join the so-called ISIS. Now, we have absolutely no connection with any of those events, nor do we know any of the people personally or organizationally. But we are absolutely adamant that these children, these three girls, were in terms of the responsibility, were the responsibility of the local Tower Hamlets Council and its so-called social services, its so-called safeguarding children duties. And we have been making this comment or commentary and updating it regularly ever since these children became the subject of the news. And we have been pointing out that those of the licensed law trading kind of business who have at various times pocketed money under the banner or the heading of representing this particular one, Shamima Begum, because she has been featured in various events that have been in the news. More than the other two. Both of those two are, according to published quote news, no longer alive. And the fact that Shamima Begum at an early age was allowed to have children, as many as 3 children in a series, all of whom she lost. And the fact that such a young person, having lost all 3 of her children, one after the other, has not received anything like the humane, humanitarian, compassionate commentary, or let alone expression of solidarity from any of the publicly accessible and known sources. So we note that and we condemn the fact that these children meaning Shamima Begum, her 2 former friends, who are no longer apparently alive, and her own children, 3 children, who died, one after the other. The fact that nobody has made any comment to the point that we know, to the extent that we know, we are aware of, illustrates the lack of humanity, the lack of compassion, and lack of actual solidarity, human solidarity, on the parts of so many of the people who are supposed to be non-political, non-party political, and only active, with many of them being funded from public sources, them being active for simply the humanitarian solidarity and support reasons. So we say that the London Borough of Tower Hamlets Council's social services, owing the duty of safeguarding children, failed throughout. Now, when I say throughout, what I mean is throughout the whole process, throughout the whole period, from the beginning of whatever it was that got Shamima Begum et al. Into the mode that became expressed for the first time publicly, to our knowledge, to my knowledge, in February or around the February 2015 transit through reportedly a Turkish airport, reportedly into a Syrian territory. So those people who were in post at various levels in the Tower Hamlets Council, let's say for several years before the February 2015 kind of reports about Shamima Begum and her 2 then alive and active friends. So those people who were in posts at several levels in Tower Hamlets Council related to the funded program, publicly funded program of safeguarding children. Who are these people? What were they doing? If they were doing anything. And today, it's 27th of February, The month is the kind of linked event, if you like. 27th of February 2021. Between, say, February 2015 and now February 2021, it's 6 years. And over the 6 years, who in Tower Hamlets Council has been doing their duty post facto, that is to say, after the fact of the girls being photographed apparently at a Turkish airport, exiting Turkey or entering Turkey not long before they reportedly left Turkey and went into Syria. Who has been accounting for what the Tower Hamlets Council safeguarding children duty linked personnel did or did not do? We are asking this as part of the world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street. We are also updating world exclusively on the failures and unfitness and the lack of fitness on the part of Tower Hamlets Council, the councillors and the post holders responsible for safeguarding children. If they didn't do anything to safeguard these children and protect them from being led astray or led off the safe path for themselves, who gave the advice the Tower Hamlets Council had no duty, or the Tower Hamlets Council did its duty, or the Tower Hamlets Council did not have all the duties, or the Tower Hamlets Council could not do the duty if other forces unknown to the Council were stronger in terms of influencing these children, were stronger in influencing these children. That is Tower Hamlets Council. Then who was in post at the time in Tower Hamlets Council as the elected mayor? Was it Lutfur Rahman? Was it John Biggs? Was it somebody else? Because these children, most likely, I have no evidence other than general, rational, logical, evidential conjecture and observational kind of insights. These children could not have been actively undergoing any kind of program of radicalization, as it is called. It's not radicalization, really, it's something else. But whatever it is, whatever the process, it could not have been begun. That is the general observation. Without any access to the files, any access to the data that the intelligence people or others may have. So they could not have been actively engaged in that process, which led them astray for more than 5 years, let's say. So if it was 5 years, let's say, and we can always modify the date upon the appearance or availability of evidence that we have no access to at this minute. Apart from that editorial publishing kind of disclaimer note, let's say that 5 years was the maximum number of years during which these children were being led astray. So if it was 5 years, let's say for the time being and for this edition, 5 years, then it would be 2010. And at the end of October 2010, the first foisting of the elected mayor post took place in Tower Hamlets. And from, say, that part of the month of October 2010, the first foisted incumbent in that post, namely Lutfur Rahman, became responsible for the council. Now, did he do his duty, discharge safeguarding children duty? Did he keep an eye on that? Because most of the contracts in Tower Hamlets that the UK intelligence spying agencies have are contracts, ironically and stupidly, routed through the East London Mosque. What were they doing? Were they bothered about the children? Were they concerned about the children? Did they know that the so-called prevent strategy, which carried with it millions of pounds of aid to the local council to spy on the community effectively, because that is what has happened. They were spying, but they were not protecting. They were not safeguarding the children. So the East London Mosque has unaccountable kind of structures of personnel. Ironically, including Shamsul Haq. Shamsul Haq, the man that is associated with the Ford Square Mosque and has been for a very long time in post as the chair of the Council of Mosques in Tower Hamlets. What on earth were they counseling one another, or the mosque, or the parents, or the community? Did they bother about the likes of Shamima Begum? Did they care about the likes of Shamima Begum? Or did they just fantasize a scenario that nobody would notice their lack of commitment, lack of engagement, lack of compassion and dedication, lack of activities in supporting any program that would have protected these children from getting astray, going astray? Because Shamsul Haq is one of the people who appeared before Richard Morey, the licensed law trader QC, who was in place as the chair of the Election Commission, which was activated to examine the allegations against Lutfur Rahman as made by the four petitioners. And Shamsul Haq came apart in giving what turned out to be, admitted by himself, as lies and lying evidence in alleged support for Lutfur Rahman. Shamsul Haq became exposed as a liar. I have been in conversations with certain people who claim to be related to Shamsul Haq when I called him a munafiq. So I consulted other people about munafiq, and who said to me that for the behavior of Shamsul Haq, he should not be called a munafiq, because munafiq is a severe kind of condemnation word that applies to somebody who betrays the faith and the confidence and the trust of God himself, or God themselves. Now, I'm not bothered about, I'm not hung up on the word munafiq, but I am hung up on the lies that any imam perpetrated on any occasion. And Shamsul Haq has perpetrated serial lies. Let Shamsul Haq or anyone who knows him deny what I'm saying. And when they deny, they must give evidence, chapter and verse. Otherwise, my assertion will stand. Because Shamsul Haq has been actively engaged in several dozens of promotional activities for Lutfur Rahman. And all of those that I know of are done dishonestly. So Shamsul Haq was definitely part of Lutfur Rahman's kind of unannounced list of contacts since October 2010. Did Shamsul Haq give any opinion about the duties to the children that the incumbent holder of the post of mayor in Tower Hamlets owed? If he did, what was it? And if he did, in what form or at what forum did he give that evidence and such evidence? This is the part 2 of the Khoodeelaar campaign, Khoodeelaar Television Channel, World Exclusive Diagnosis of Fleet Street. And what we are doing today in this part, at this stage, is this: looking at this girl, this child, Shamima Begum, and the ruling by the UK Supreme Court against her yesterday, Friday, the 26th of April to February 2021. Now, what we have in the public domain generally is, in effect, version or versions of the contents posted or published by the UK intelligence agencies and the UK operatives that run parallel to or along with and in support of the intelligence agencies and the agenda being against, generally against the human rights of the Muslim people, as is evident in the, as I said, thousands of comments that have been posted online on the Sun, Rupert Murdoch's Sun online. Let's see the actual number of the comments. This is 11:48. We have been on air on this part since 11:25 GMT. And this KhoodeelaarTV channel broadcast online, not on satellite or terrestrial, but only online, by the Khoodeelaar campaign, active in association with dozens of other campaigns, and including the latest one, which is End Hunger at Root. And what we are doing in these diagnostic, analytical, investigative contents is sharing with anyone who comes to view or watch these programs the exclusive findings of our exclusive investigations into events and issues that affect just wide numbers of people across the world in terms of the principle, accountability, and in this context about today's Guardian piece about Shamima Begum, the entire Muslim world. Because the Muslim world has been hijacked by any numbers of crooks and criminals and thugs like those who murdered Jamal Khashoggi and the ruler of Dubai, who has been holding his 2 daughters, as far as is known, captive. One is 35-year-old Latifa and her older sister, age 39 or 37. So these children, well, they were children when they were first attacked, are being victimized by their own biological Muslim parents. Muslim families, Muslim societies, so called. And there is no evidence, absolutely no evidence anywhere that the Muslim quote world, or to use the tired and absolutely boring and dishonestly used phrase, ummah, Muslim ummah, criminals operating as operatives for various regimes, but doing so as kind of bearded, mainly bearded and otherwise Islamically dressed, devout Muslims, have been lying for decades for these criminal regimes. And the liars have been operating in England, in the USA and Western Europe as well, and in Australia and other parts of the world where Muslims are not in the majority in the countries they're in. So this Khoodeelaar channel is unique also in the fact that we assert on the evidence, not because we have any bias or we have got any agenda, on the evidence, strictly on the evidence that Muslim community, the majority of the Muslim population is being blamed wrongly and for no reason and on no evidence for things that they have not done, they have not had any intention to do, nor have they been in any way supportive of these bad things that are bad for not just Muslims but non-Muslim people as well. And there is this huge gap. Where do the Muslims find the resources and the support and the structure to get their societies rid of the criminals that are their rulers, their governors, their elected representatives, so-called representatives? Back to Tower Hamlets and the so-called representatives in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, even now at this age, the day after the UK Supreme Court ruling was published against Shamima Begum's latest application, the numbers of elected councillors from one particular community, that is faith community, so-called Muslim councillors in Tower Hamlets, are the single largest group. And almost all of them, as far as I know at this stage, at this time, that is this time of this broadcast ongoing, because we are doing live, I'm speaking live and without any kind of script in front of me. The essential script is the script of my actions over a very long time. Action in investigating, action in researching, action in fact-checking, action in comparing notes in terms of the contents of my findings and the contextual details. So I'm speaking live without any script in front of me and without any lines being put in front of me. And as I say, I'm speaking on the evidence that I have fact-checked and verified and investigated many, many times over. So the majority of the councillors in Tower Hamlets, this is a phenomenon. It is so phenomenal in terms of the local significance given to this back in Sylhet or Silot, from where most of them come, in fact all of them come from, in terms of the descent. Many of them were born there and some of them were not born there but related to people who were born there. Any mention in, say, Silot, in the village or villages of, say, the Jagannathpur or Balagonj or Gulabgonj or Bianibaz or whatever areas, Any mention of London and the Tar Hamlets Council or London councils creates an instant sense of achievement on the part of all concerned. And that is a false, very lethal and false and stupid sense of achievement. Because nobody can deny that Shamima Begum is a child of a family of Silotis. And yet, all of these councillors, Silotis, have remained totally silent about Shamima Begum. How absolutely disgraceful. How absolutely shameful. What do they think has gone wrong with the experience that Shamima Begum and her two friends have been through? Who betrayed these children? Who let them down? Because there are posts that have been in existence to look after these children, to make sure they don't lose the opportunities of life. And these three children have, of course, lost everything. They were not born radical or whatever it is that they are factually kind of have been guilty of. They were not born anything wrong. They were ordinary children. So when did the wrong things catch them or touch them? And at what point did the Tar Hamlets Council drop its duties under the safeguarding children duties? And why is it that Jim Fitzpatrick, who was an MP for a long time, or Rushnara Ali, who became MP in May 2010. Remember the year 2010, which is when Luther Roman became the mayor. Why did Jim Fitzpatrick or Rushnara Ali stay silent about the role of Tar Hamlets Council to safeguard the children, like the likes of Shamima Begum and her two friends? What is the excuse for those morons who falsely and corruptly hold events or give space to the likes of Rushnara Ali in the so-called ethnicity-linked so-called media? What excuse have those criminals got to stay silent on the silence of Rushnara Ali about Tar Hamlets Council's failure of the safeguarding the children duties, as those duties affected these three girls? Any of the criminals involved in broadcasting or publishing any so-called ethnicity links media who finds what I'm saying too strong a criticism must ask themselves the question: are my criticism based on a personal interest on my part to do damage to the reputation of any of them? Rushnara Ali, Jim Fitzpatrick, or these criminals promoting Rushnara Ali on the various ethnicity links outlets. If they think that I have got some personal interest, they must prove that assertion. Otherwise, they must stop lying to themselves about what I do and what I say. I am the one who is holding all these criminals to account. If there is anyone else that is doing the job, then I don't have to do the job. Who is that is doing the job? Who let down Shamima Begum? Or is that child and her life and the lives of the two friends she was with, are these not as important as the lives of persons of same age or similar ages in the rest of the community, in the families of these criminal liars doing the lying by the ethnicity linked media? Would they stay silent if one of their children or one of their relations, similar age, had their life destroyed in the way that Shamima Begum's life and the lives of our two friends have been destroyed? Let them answer this factually, not out of stupidity, of darkness, of idiocy and mental slavery. Let them face the facts and let them tell the truth about what is going on and who let Shamima Begum down. We have noticed that there is a so-called campaign. I say so-called, and I'll explain that in a minute. So-called campaign to have the elected mayor post scrapped. That is so-called because this campaign, the Khoodeelaar campaign, and the campaign we launched called Bangilar, to stop the corrupt post of elected mayor being foisted onto our Hrs Council. We did that remember, this is February, and in February 2010, which is 11 calendar years ago, I played the significant part in leading a key part of the rally against the mayor referendum campaign. Outside the Brady Centre in the Hanbury Street, off Brick Lane, London E1, United Kingdom. On Saturday, this is a Saturday, when that Saturday was Saturday the 6th of February, 2010. And George Galloway was in support of the mayor system, and as was Ken Lying Still Livingston, as was Keith Sleaze Vaz. One Bangladeshi mental slave, Gulam Fua, I say Gulam Fua, supported Keith Sleaze Vaz. When Keith Sleaze Vaz made a stupid, infantile, idiotic, corrupt criminal jealous point against me. Now this Gulam Fua didn't know and still doesn't know the extent of my work against crooks and liars that predates the biological birth of this Gulam Fua. I have been campaigning against liars regardless of what faith or what ethnicity they have. And my life is a life of action against lies and lying and liars. And everything I have campaigned for so far has been in due course vindicated. I have campaigned for only the quality and the content of the issue and the matter, not for any benefit for myself. In fact, I have lost every time I have done a campaign, and I do the campaign by clearly being aware of losing more of my own resources, my time, and so on. So when the Ghulam Fuad said that whatever Keith Sleazebaz was saying might be true, the Ghulam Fuad had no idea just how right I had always been against Keith Sleazebaz. The Ghulam Fuad had no idea that I had predicted correctly years before the Sleazebaz was caught lying, caught stealing, caught thieving. I'm the one who had got that right. And what happened on the 6th of February 2010 outside the Brady Center on the matter of whether to have an elected mayor or not was simply this. Those of us who genuinely said no to the elected mayor had as evidence the behavior of the Bangladeshi community itself in Tower Hamlets. And we knew that one crook or another would get hold of the post and completely mess up the reputation of the community. At least I did. And this is what happened. But on that day, Saturday, the 6th of February 2010, we didn't know about these three girls. We only knew about that, at least I knew about that in February 2015 or thereafter, when their actual names and pictures were part of the mainstream news that I was watching or observing. So it was more than 5 years before, because it was 6th of February 2010. And they were seen in February. It must be sometime into the middle of the month of February 2015. So when we said no to the mayor, we didn't know the particular events about Shamima Begum or others, but we knew that kind of thing would happen. That is to say, the safeguarding of children or safeguarding children duties owed by Tower Hamlets Council would be betrayed, which is what has happened here. And when I confronted Keith Sleazebaz, the crook, I confronted the crook in the early 1980s. And it was, even then, it was years before the racists in the Labour Party at the time were cooking up this corrupt slogan of black section, Labour Party black section. And the Labour Party black section was instantly seen through by me that it was another racist, colonialist, repressive, anti-democratic, corrupt ploy. Now, if I wanted to become an MP, or if I wanted to suck up to the bloody kind of crooks to become a member of the House of Peers, I would have done that 40 years ago. I could have become a member of parliament and a minister or something. That was never a big deal. It never is. But the crooks who believe that having an elected post or a similar is the mark of achievement, of a human life or a person's life? Of course, they're wrong. The mark of achievement or the test is to see whether you are getting it right or if you are getting it wrong. If you are doing it for your own selfish purposes or if you are doing for the good of the people in the larger society, larger world. That is the test. When Einstein said that you cannot solve everything, but you must do the things that you can do to solve some of the wrongs. He got that right. And no individual human being can do everything, of course. They can only do what they can do. But the point is, the difference is they have to make the difference in terms of wanting to do the right thing or not wanting to do the right thing. Crooks like Jeff Bezos of the Amazon and criminals like Mark Zuckerberg and other criminals like Bill Gates or Elon Musk. These criminals are being given undue prominence and platforms by even the likes of The Guardian, of course, because of their accumulation of other people's money. Now, no court of law, so-called, has ruled against any of these criminals. Think about that. What does it show? It shows that the entire human population or the entire population among human beings, there are other people other than these four who could mount challenges against these individual criminals, have chosen not to mount the challenges. Think about that. What does it show? It shows that there is no basis to accept as true any assertion, any excuse by any of those people who have the means to challenge Bezos, Zuckerberg, Gates, Musk, and have chosen not to challenge them, that they could not challenge them. Don't accept that at all. They have chosen to go along with and be or capitulate to these big criminals, looters. And that includes heads of governments. That includes heads of governments, not just individuals. Heads of governments, ministers, prime ministers, heads of states, who are one way or the other capitulating to Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. No human being needs even £1 million to have a life without kind of hardship or want. But these ones have got billions, hundreds of billions. Isn't that wrong? Hundreds of millions of people are starving and dying. And these big criminals are being allowed to sit on hundreds of billions of pounds while hundreds of millions of people die of hunger, starvation, and sink in the boats in the seas, trying to cross into the world they think will have a better prospect for them, better safety for them. So this part B of the Khoodeelaar campaign, Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcast from London, online from London, on Saturday the 27th of February 2021. This has been about the morality, the ethics, and the obligations, and especially we have focused on tower hamlers, and we have included the Gulamfua, who I did not see but I heard as he was making a programmed spiel against me and in support of sleazebars. And sleazebars on that occasion, at that meeting, minutes after the Ghulam Fua apparently supported sleazebars. Sleazebars was forced to apologize to me because I had told him that after making the comment he made, sleazebars would not leave the meeting without something else happening, holding him to account. And the chair of the meeting, who is no longer alive, his name is Sayyid Ashraf. The chair of the meeting, Sayyid Ashraf, stood up and said to sleazebars that he must apologize for the remark that he made against a member of the audience. Sayyid Ashraf didn't name me as such, but he meant me, of course, because I was standing inches from him as he spoke. So sleazebars, the criminal, had been one of the people in the black section that the Labour Party racist criminal managers had kind of allowed to infiltrate, because sleazebars was not an activist, not a member of the community, not a member of the campaigns against racism or anything. The sole purpose for sleazebars getting in on the act as a potential member of parliament via the banner of the black sections was to get in as a member of parliament and to enrich himself and the rest of it. And that is what happened. All the campaigns that have taken kind of root or were being founded or run in the 70s and 80s against racism and for the general advocacy of the ideas of upholding the equality and entitlements to equality of the rights of the people of African and Asian origin. I was actively involved in those. I am actively involved after those in other efforts, as this is part of those efforts as well, this broadcast and the work that organizing this broadcast entails, and the course. The fact that there is a thing called Black Lives Matter, as I said previously, warrants, demands, requires examination, fact-checking. What is this about? Who is it accountable to? And what morality, if any, is this based on? And has anyone involved in the narrative in the UK, especially, called Black Lives Matter? Have they heard of the London transport? Have they heard of the London buses? And are they aware of how totally in the darkness and in the corrupt mental slavery state are so many London bus drivers are? Two days ago, on a 135 bus, so I'm giving away facts there, one bus driver, clearly either from the Caribbean background or from African background, it's a male, clearly was mentally very seriously ill. And I shall give a detailed account, step by step, of everything that mentally ill person did. Not in this part, but later or in another part. Now the question is, that Sadiq Khan, as the mayor of London, or mayor in the name of London, keeps putting his name forward on the record anyway as saying that he is sympathetic to the key workers and the state of mental health or mental health well-being that these people are entitled to have. Now, this bus driver was totally agitated. And so many bus drivers behave so erratically that there must be a large number of them quite mad and yet being allowed to be on the wheels or at the wheels. It's very dangerous, strictly very dangerous, unsafe. Any passenger that these mad bus drivers behave madly towards would have to be absolutely very clearly alert to the likelihood that these mad bus drivers could cause serious accident, injuring or even killing passengers and others who may be affected by any crash that these buses are plunged into. But Sadiq Khan's operations, publicity operations, propaganda operations don't have any room for accountability. There is no forum where the victims of mad bus drivers can actually seek relief and remedies for the damage, the stress they have been caused by these mad bus drivers. We shall be talking more about this in another part or in later parts or editions. Going back to sleazebaz and Shamima Begum, how does sleazebaz come into this context? Because for a long number of years, this sleaze criminal, look up the word. It's not criminal as a fancy word I'm using it literally as a criminal, as an intentionally reckless person. This crook and a liar sat as the chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee of MPs. And from time to time, this sleazebaz indulged in self-promoting appearances on television news slots. And he did that many times between 2010 and up till the time he was forced to resign. No MP nor any member of the Labour Party, ordinary member, active member, expressed any fact-based criticism of sleazebaz's behavior. But parallel to his sitting as the chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, sleazebaz also made routine appearances as a paid kind of recipient of undisclosed amounts of money from the variety of multi-billionaire Indian business persons. Of course, his most notorious contacts was with one lot of the billionaires from India. But that was not the only lot. So he could engage with the billionaires, millionaires, and assorted other kind of opportunistic crooks with sufficient money to buy the loyal service of this so-called elected member of parliament for Leicester East, this criminal sleazebaz. And he never sleazebaz never ever expressed one single statement of any concern about the welfare of the children, like the children Shamima Begum and the two of her friends, now deceased or now considered deceased. How is that acceptable? None of the ethnicity-linked criminal media operative Ghulam Fuain ever raised any question about the silence on the part of Keith Sleazebaz in relation to children in positions like that these children, Shamima Begum and her two friends, found themselves in. Remember what we are talking about. We are talking about the ruling yesterday, Friday, the 26th of February 2021, by the UK Supreme Court against Shamima Begum. And the application was that she should be allowed to return to the UK to defend herself against the Home Office taking away her British citizenship. This is a British-born child. She may have Bangladeshi origin, Siloti origin, parents, but she is born in Britain. She is a British-born child. And what we are talking about is that this child was not born a criminal. And that the people who made several court-related kind of cases on her alleged behalf over the last 5 years or 6 years. And we are talking about the people who are licensed law traders, that is to say, either soul cheaters, solicitors, or barristers. None of those people, none of them, to our knowledge, has initiated any claim against the London Borough of Towns Council or against the UK Interior Department, that is the Home Office. The only reference, which is very slender, by one of the licensed law traders, apparently acting for Shamima Begum, that reference was based on what we had extensively published condemning the failures and the negligence by Towns Council. So it wasn't original, and those liars are so mean-minded and pathetic and ungrateful. They didn't mention the source of that observation and that series of questionnaire or questions we alone created. So this is world exclusive diagnosis in that kind of way. It's world exclusive because no one else thought about this until we publish our findings. And what is happening in this kind of aftermath of the removal of her citizenship by Sajid Javid is that Shamima Begum is not being mentioned. Even now, Shamima Begum has not been mentioned by any of these funded, that is publicly funded, so-called ethnicity-linked groups, volunteers, etc. Any mention of Shamima Begum by these criminals is only repeating mentally slave-like, mental slavishly, what the BBC is saying or what the Home Office is saying or the ITV is saying or something like that. There is no original investigation. There is no original investigation with reference to the safeguarding children duties owed to Shamima Begum and two of her friends now deceased by the London Borough of Towns Council, the local council. To our knowledge, and this is again subject to any fact-checking kind of updated that may be necessary. None of the MPs from either of the two constituencies in Tower Hamlets has raised the questions that they could raise about the failure of Tower Hamlets Council or the linked failure of the Home Office. Because if the Prevent program has been put in place by Tower Hamlets Council, and if the Prevent program is supposed to be about safeguarding children in Tower Hamlets, then there must be or must have been in place a systematic, transparent accountability procedure in place. So who in the Home Office was responsible for watching the behavior of Tower Hamlets Council in the context of the failures and the negligence owed to Shamima Begum and her two friends, presumed dead, who actually looked into the behavior of Tower Hamlets Council in their context. Who at the Home Office, I mean. And what question has Roshanara Ali put to the Home Office about the behavior of Shamima Begum and her two friends, presumed dead now, and what the Safeguarding Children and the Prevent program did to safeguard these children before it was too late, before the damage was done. I say before it was too late and before the damage was done. This is a phrase, or these phrases apply across the board. All the duties that the council exists in a funded state, publicly funded state, all the services that the council is funded to deliver are being neglected in the same way. So we shall be talking more about that in the next part.